Right now, as you read these words, you're trapped inside a prison you cannot see. It's not made of bars or walls. It's made of frequencies, patterns, and signals that keep you locked in the same loop, experiencing the same reality, wondering why nothing ever truly changes. This is the dominant signal trap, and until you understand how it works, you'll keep collapsing the same limited timeline over and over again. Let me shatter something for you. The quantum field around you is listening to everything. Not just your words, not just your thoughts, but the deep electromagnetic signature you're broadcasting every single moment. And here's the terrifying truth most people never realize. Your dominant signal isn't what you think it is. You might be saying all the right affirmations, visualizing your dream life, writing in gratitude journals, but underneath all of that, your system is screaming a completely different message. Your nervous system is coated with fear. Your body is braced for disappointment. Your heart is armored against rejection. And the quantum field reads all of it simultaneously, responding to the loudest frequency, which is almost never your conscious intention. This is why people stay trapped. They're fighting a war on the wrong battlefield. They're trying to change their reality by changing their thoughts. But thoughts are just the surface layer. The real signal comes from your entire energetic system, your emotional patterns, your cellular memory, your subconscious programming. All of it creates one unified broadcast, and that broadcast determines what timeline you collapse into experience. Think about this. Right now, infinite versions of your life exist in quantum superposition. There's a timeline where you're abundant, confident, loved, healthy, successful. There's also a timeline where you're stuck, struggling, repeating the same patterns. Both are equally real until the moment of collapse. And what determines which one becomes your lived experience? Your dominant signal. Most people's dominant signal is fear disguised as hope. They want love but expect rejection. They desire abundance but feel unworthy. They seek health but identify with sickness. They dream of success but believe they're not good enough. This creates what I call signal contradiction, where your conscious desires are being overridden by your subconscious programming. Here's where it gets really wild. The quantum field doesn't judge your signal. It doesn't care if you deserve better or if you've been trying for years. It simply mirrors back whatever frequency is most coherent, most consistent, most dominant in your system. And for most people, that's the frequency of limitation, because limitation feels safe to the nervous system that's been conditioned by trauma, disappointment, and survival. You see, your brain is wired to keep you alive, not to make you happy. It prioritizes familiar over fulfilling, known over magical, predictable over transformational. So even when you consciously want change, your subconscious is scanning for threats, preparing for the worst, keeping you locked in patterns that feel safe, even if they make you miserable. This creates what scientists call the observer effect, but not in the way most people understand it. You're not just observing reality with your eyes. You're observing it with your entire being. Your beliefs, your emotions, your expectations, your cellular memory, all of it acts as the observer that collapses the quantum wave into form. And if that observer is dominated by fear, doubt, and limitation, guess what reality you're going to keep experiencing? But here's the breakthrough that changes everything. You can hack your dominant signal. You can retrain your system to broadcast a different frequency. But it's not about thinking your way out or forcing positive thoughts. It's about coherence, about aligning every layer of your being, conscious and subconscious, mental and emotional, spiritual and physical. This is where most manifestation teachings fail. They focus on the mind while ignoring the body. They emphasize intention while neglecting emotional regulation. They talk about vibration without addressing nervous system dysregulation. But your dominant signal is generated by your entire system working together or working against itself. Let me break down what's really happening in your body right now. Your thoughts create electrical patterns in your brain. Your emotions create chemical cascades throughout your system. Your breath affects your autonomic nervous system. Your posture influences your hormone production. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that's thousands of times stronger than your brain's. All of these systems are constantly communicating, creating one unified signal that the quantum field reads instantaneously. When these systems are in conflict, when your mind wants one thing but your body expects another, you create signal static. The field receives mixed messages and defaults to whatever pattern is most familiar, most deeply encoded in your system. This is why people can do manifestation work for years without seeing real change. They're broadcasting mixed signals, and the quantum responds to the dominant one, which is usually fear-based. The trap gets deeper when you realize that most people's dominant signal was programmed in childhood. Your nervous system learned to expect certain outcomes based on early experiences. If you experienced abandonment, your system learned to expect rejection. If you experienced scarcity, your system learned to expect lack. If you experienced criticism, your system learned to expect judgment. These patterns become so automatic, so unconscious, that you don't even realize you're broadcasting them. This is why changing your external circumstances often doesn't work. You can change jobs, relationships, cities, but if your internal signal hasn't shifted, you'll recreate the same patterns in new environments. The quantum field doesn't care about your circumstances, it cares about your frequency. But here's what's absolutely fascinating. The moment you become aware of your dominant signal, the moment you can feel it in your body, sense it in your emotional patterns, recognize it in your automatic responses, that awareness itself begins to shift the frequency. Consciousness is the key that unlocks quantum potential. Most people live their entire lives unconscious of their dominant signal. They react automatically, feel the same emotions, expect the same outcomes, not realizing they're stuck in a loop of their own creation. But when you start paying attention, when you start noticing the subtle ways your system braces for disappointment or contracts with fear, you can begin to interrupt those patterns. This interruption is crucial because your dominant signal isn't fixed, it's changeable, it's programmable. But it requires conscious participation, consistent practice, and most importantly, embodied transformation. You can't think your way to a new signal. You have to feel your way there, breathe your way there, live your way there. Here's the part that will blow your mind. Every single moment of every single day, you're choosing your dominant signal. When you wake up expecting struggle, you're programming struggle. When you check your bank account with anxiety, you're reinforcing scarcity. When you interact with others from a place of guardedness, you're broadcasting isolation. Most people make these choices unconsciously, but you can learn to make them deliberately. The quantum field is incredibly responsive, but it's also incredibly accurate. It doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you're actually signaling through every level of your being. This is both the challenge and the opportunity. The challenge is that you have to address not just your thoughts, but your emotions. Not just your desires, but your expectations. Not just your hopes, but your cellular programming. The opportunity is that once you align these systems, once you create coherence between your conscious intention and your subconscious programming, the quantum field has no choice but to mirror back a different reality. This isn't metaphysical theory. This is quantum mechanics applied to human consciousness. Your dominant signal is like a radio station. Right now you might be tuned to Fear FM, broadcasting worry, doubt, and limitation 24/7. But there are infinite stations available. There's Abundance Radio, Love Frequency, Health Channel, Success Signal. The question is, how do you change the station, and more importantly, how do you keep it there? This is where most people get tripped up. They might tune to a positive frequency for a few minutes during meditation or visualization, but then they immediately flip back to their default programming. They feel abundant during their morning practice, then stressed about money by afternoon. They feel loving during their self-care routine, then defensive in their relationships. They feel healthy during their workout, then anxious about their symptoms by evening. The key is signal consistency. The quantum field responds to persistent, coherent signals, not occasional positive thoughts. This means you need to train your entire system to hold a new frequency, not just visit it occasionally. It's like learning a new language. At first, you have to consciously translate every word, but eventually, you start thinking in that language naturally. Your new dominant signal needs to become as automatic as your old one. This happens through repetition, through conscious choice, through consistent embodiment. Every time you catch yourself defaulting to the old signal and consciously choose the new one, you're rewiring your system. Every time your new dominant signal needs to become as automatic as your old one. This happens through repetition, through conscious choice, through consistent embodiment. Every time you catch yourself defaulting to the old signal and consciously choose the new one, you're rewiring your system. Every time you feel fear arising and breathe into trust instead, you're changing your programming. Every time you expect the worst and deliberately shift to expecting the best, you're training a new dominant frequency. But here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't about positive thinking or forcing good vibes. This is about authentic transformation. Your system can sense when you're trying to fake a frequency, and it will reject it. The shift has to be genuine, felt, embodied. You can't pretend your way to a new timeline. This is why trauma work, emotional healing, and nervous system regulation are so important for quantum transformation. If your system is holding unprocessed pain, unresolved fear, or chronic stress, those frequencies will dominate no matter what you try to overlay on top of them. Healing isn't just about feeling better emotionally. It's about clearing the signal interference that keeps you trapped in old timelines. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Say you want to shift into an abundance timeline. Your conscious mind might visualize wealth, affirm prosperity, and focus on gratitude. But if your nervous system is coated with financial trauma, if your body contracts every time you think about money, if your heart races when bills arrive, then fear is your dominant signal, not abundance. To truly shift, you'd need to address the trauma, retrain the nervous system, and create new emotional associations with money. You'd need to practice feeling safe with wealth, comfortable with receiving, worthy of abundance. This happens through conscious reprogramming, through deliberately choosing thoughts, emotions, and actions that align with the frequency of prosperity. The same principle applies to love, health, success, or any other desired timeline. You have to become coherent at every level of your being. Your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, expectations, and actions all need to be broadcasting the same signal. When you achieve this kind of systemic alignment, the quantum field responds immediately. This is the secret that mystics and quantum physicists both understand. Reality is frequency-based. Everything in existence is vibrating at specific rates, creating interference patterns that we experience as physical reality. When you change your dominant signal, you change which reality you're tuned into. You don't create something from nothing. You select from infinite possibilities that already exist in quantum superposition. This is why certain numbers, symbols, and codes feel powerful to people. 369, 777, sacred geometry. These aren't superstitions. They're frequency markers, mathematical expressions of harmonic patterns that exist throughout the universe. When you attune to these patterns, you're aligning with fundamental forces of creation itself. But remember, no external tool or technique can override an incoherent internal signal. The numbers, the symbols, the practices, they work because they help you achieve the internal state that broadcasts the frequency you're seeking. They're not magic in themselves. The magic is in your coherence, in your ability to align every aspect of your being with the timeline you're choosing. This is the real work of quantum transformation. It's not about learning more techniques or gathering more information. It's about becoming aware of your current dominant signal and consciously evolving it. It's about healing the wounds that keep you trapped in limitation and embodying the frequency of your desired reality. Most people resist this work because it requires taking full responsibility for their signal, their frequency, their reality. It's easier to believe that circumstances control your life, that other people determine your happiness, that external conditions dictate your possibilities. But quantum mechanics reveals the truth. You are the primary creative force in your reality because you are the observer whose signal collapses infinite potential into specific experience. This can feel overwhelming at first. The idea that you're responsible for your own reality, that your internal state is creating your external experience, that your dominant signal determines your timeline, It's a massive shift in perspective. But it's also incredibly empowering because it means you have the power to change everything by changing your frequency. The question isn't whether you're broadcasting a signal, you always are. The question is whether you're conscious of what you're broadcasting and whether you're willing to take responsibility for evolving it. Your dominant signal is your creative signature, your unique frequency in the infinite symphony of existence. Right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can continue broadcasting the same old signal, expecting the same old results, staying trapped in the same old timeline. Or you can begin the journey of conscious signal transformation. You can start paying attention to the frequency you're generating through your thoughts, emotions, expectations, and actions. You can begin to notice when your system defaults to fear and consciously choose to shift to trust. You can catch yourself expecting limitation and deliberately attune to possibility. You can feel your body contracting with old patterns and breathe into new ones. This is how you hack the quantum field. This is how you escape the dominant signal trap. The transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it begins immediately. The moment you become conscious of your signal, the moment you take responsibility for your frequency, the moment you commit to coherent alignment, you start broadcasting differently. And when you broadcast differently, the quantum field responds with different possibilities, different opportunities, different realities. Your life is not happening to you. Your life is being created by you through the signal you're broadcasting every moment of every day. When you understand this, when you really get how powerful your dominant signal is, you realize that you've never been trapped by circumstances, by other people, or by fate. You've been trapped by your own unconscious frequency, and that means you can free yourself by consciously evolving it. This is your invitation to wake up to your creative power, to take responsibility for your signal, and to begin broadcasting the frequency of the timeline you truly desire. The quantum field is waiting to respond. The only question is, what signal are you ready to send?